How you doing, Bill?
Yeah, very good. It was interesting time to find you guys. I think maybe joined in October-ish to the group,
Hmm.
and like everybody else, kind of just followed your instructions, just lurked, watched all your videos. I'm glad I did at the time,
We're going to be
and
getting
then
them shoved back up there
yeah,
one by one.
and I said, all right, well, I'm going to start 2022. I'm going to order the protocol, and uh, I was sold on it. I listened to enough people, and then the real topper was I probably broke a rule. Maybe I reached out to John Evans because I'm like, and no disrespect to the older people or anything, but I'm like, I'm similar age. I'm in my I'm 55, so a little older than him. Kind of at
You're
this point in
you're
life, got kids still.
you're
I
young,
got at home and running. What's that? Yeah, running a business, and I'm like,
young.
I want to talk to somebody who's kind of like me. I'm also a giant like him, by the way. So
He is a giant.
um, he sent me the picture when he met you. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm like, I knew you were a big guy, but God.
There's a
um,
baseball player. My son used to work with the Miami Marlins, and there's a ball player named the hell he changed his name. His last name's Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton. And I got a picture of myself. My kid used to get me into BP and games for 10 years, and he introduced me to the big slugger. And the guy was John would have, and you probably would have to look up to see his eyes. I think he's 6'5". And there's a picture of me that just I look like part of a circus act, just a little midget. But and that's at 5'6.5". I used to be 5'7". So maybe, you have something to look forward to as you age. Are you shrinking at any rate?
I don't think so.
Okay.
My 15-year-old son is kept caught up to me though. So,
Oh, that's frightening.
um, but yes, so I joined in October, and, absorbed everything. And I'm not a big posting on Facebook type of person, especially about personal stuff. So I just kind of did what you advised, and that's really the ticket I think that people need to do. But then it was like, well, Bob's no longer on Facebook. He got kicked off, and somebody hacked him for revenge. And oh, by the way, the 525 is going away. And I was like, oh, hold on, is this really it? And then I talked to John right after the new year. I guess I reached out to him, and I said, hey, just want to get your thoughts on this. And he seemed to run a path looking at his old posts where he was very skeptical, you know,
Yep.
combative even in his posts,
Sure.
and then came around and obviously the big supporter. So he was nice enough to jump on a FaceTime with me, and we chatted for about an hour. We have a lot in common with family and things. And so I jumped in, got my shipment, and then COVID finally caught me. Went 2 years with not having anything, being careful,
When
and
did
it
you
came through
when
my
did you
son.
get it from your son?
Yeah, from his, we had a breakout on his basketball team, and that ultimately how it found it into its house. Triple vaccinated, still got it. So obviously it kind of knocked me out for about a week, honestly, too, where I wasn't like, gee, I don't like drinking, hemp seed oil and all this stuff. I was lucky to get chicken soup down.
Right.
Um, and I jumped in and I did the ramp up. And yesterday was 2 weeks on the full. Um, I'm going into it. My situation is different, like everybody's, right? I mean, I don't have excruciating pain. Mine's and the title. I think the title is what caught me, honestly, when I found you. The word discomfort, because that describes more of my life.
Right.
um, and uh, end of 2019, I started having right before the pandemic. I started having calf twitching, and of course, you Google it like everybody does, and there's horrible things that, not that this isn't horrible, but,
Fasciculations.
ALS. And,
Yeah,
yep.
you're having fasciculations, and the first thing is what's happening to me, because it's getting
Yep.
frequent and it's happening. Yep.
And then you Google it, and ALS and MS and all these other fun things
Uh-huh.
come up. So I went to, the doctor, and, drink more water, or take some, maybe you're vitamin D deficient, which I was slightly, by the way.
Yeah, unless you work outside, we pretty much are all vitamin D deficient.
Right. Yeah, and it was like borderline. It wasn't anything. So, it spent a couple more months, and then finally saw a neurologist, had an EMG. Is that word? EMG, right?
Yep.
No, EMG, right?
EMG.
Yeah. And, I remember they called me, the nurse or the assistant called me. It's like, oh, good news, Mr. Swift. You don't have ALS or MS. I'm like, oh, that's good. You have, and she couldn't even pronounce peripheral neuropathy. I had never heard of it in my life before. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's good, I guess. And then started Googling, and, stumbled upon, and interestingly enough, there's a guy here in Charlotte who runs one of the Facebook groups. Even though they say, success stories, I think it's called, or something. And I joined that, and the guy's like, hey, I'm in Charlotte. You want to grab coffee? I'm like, sure. And that started off like the gloom and doom, the psychological, because this guy's like, yeah, I had to retire. He's telling me how to get disability. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. I run a business.
And he runs a group called Success Stories.
Yeah.
Okay.
A joke.
Are you familiar?
It's a joke.
Me, I'm not. I try to stay out of, when I was on Facebook, I tried to stay out after I had the experience of joining what was at the time, back in 12 or 13, the largest neuropathy Facebook group, and ended up being a moderator, and then decided going my own way because it was nothing but gloom and doom there. And I discovered what I discovered and decided to start my own group. And my experience was, the guy that ran that group sent a bunch of attackers into my group and started spreading rumors, mayhem. And it just, from that day forward, it was really an uncomfortable existence on Facebook. I was being attacked from all different sides, and people were trying to screw up the group, and they would join, and then they'd end up getting kicked out because they just didn't play well with others, or they, I'm not wealthy. I've owned this house for 20 years, and I've got kids that live in Las Vegas, and I ended up, having people writing crap like, you're selling all these expensive vitamins, and, how can you do that? It was like, if I joined another group just to see what was going on, I could know what was going on. There are groups who actually have my name or the protocol or the name of the Facebook group that I started in their rules and guidelines, that they will get booted if they mention any of that. So, as though a support group were a competition. You get the valuable information for wherever you can. And if you're not getting valuable information, you shouldn't be there, because it'll just bring down your drive to make improvements. It'll close you off from all of the rest of reality. And in most cases,
They are the dweller groups.
Yeah. In most cases, they're driven only and solely by what their pharmaceutical rep / physician advisor tells them, which is basically, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you other than to try to make you feel more comfortable. And that's just not true. I mean, we're not getting cured, but we are reducing the aggravation that our symptoms cause. Even if we take a little off the top, from having an 8, 9, or 10 discomfort level to a 1, 2, 3, well, hell, that's worth it. Who can't deal with 1, 2, or 3? So
Went from 15.
what's that?
My pain was off the charts.
Oh, well, you got to speak up, girl. It's bad enough. And she's in North Carolina, but listen to that accent.
Oh yeah, what part are you in?
Eastern,
Okay.
northeastern North
Yeah, I'm
Carolina.
in. I don't know if you admit, I'm in Charlotte, so kind of a world away, right?
About 3 or 4 hours.
It's like if you
Yeah.
go down to that still at the corner behind the big hill, that's where you'll find her place.
Yeah. So anyhow, this guy that ran the group, a nice enough guy, but it
Right.
only took me about 15 minutes over coffee to. Are you still there, Bob?
Yeah. Did I go away?
Yeah, the video disappeared for a second.
Oh.
Over coffee, he told me what drugs he was on. He was on all the stuff. It was almost like hearing what you say in your, like, gabapentin, Lyrica, whatever else, OxyContin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, then he had a spinal implant, and then he had some other implant that fed like a narcotic into him.
Oh my God.
Like, I mean, and the guy was like getting around. He looked, he didn't look, he was walking around and stuff. But he's like telling me all this, and he's like telling me how, disability is really easy to get. And, I'm like, this guy's already given up.
Of course.
So that sent me into a bit of a panic mode, because at that point I'm like, well, maybe that's how it is. And again, mine has not been more psychologically that I have this and there's no cure,
Right.
than taking me away from doing anything. I don't have horrific pain like I hear some people have. I do have a combination of burning. And again, it's moderate. It's like a mild sunburn type of feel on my feet exclusively. I still have the fasciculations. And then it could go from burning to like ice cold where it hurts a little bit.
Yep.
And then,
Is your floor tiled at home?
no, I've listened to that. The hashtag cold feet. No, it's not. It's hardwood though. So, I mean, probably the same type of thing. But the weird thing about mine could be ice cold with slippers and thermal socks on, and
Sure.
the heat at a comfortable level.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how I can get them warm? By taking that stuff off. Like, it's almost like my feet being contained make them cold. I don't know why, but that's it.
It's
So anyhow,
it's a little constriction, which reduces a little bit of blood flow, which reduces a little bit of communication between your peripheral nerves. And I get the same thing. My house is completely tiled, and I keep my house at 71, 72, on a warm day, 73. And if I walk around on the tiles barefoot, within about 15 or 20 minutes, uncomfortable ice block feet. And if I put on some ankle high, medium grade socks, that goes away completely. I don't have, it doesn't get worse, but I don't have the annoying cold anymore. When I climb into the bed at the end of the day, sometimes it'll take me 15, 20 minutes before my feet feel like they have been compensated enough to where I can take the socks off, and then I'm good for the rest of the night. So it's a lot of outside influence that messes with the sensitivity that you are learning to live with.
And then I guess the last thing I assume is, well, I do have numbness because I've had the pinprick and pizza cutter wheel on my feet and all that
Right.
stuff that neurologist did. So I do have some of that, but just really on my one foot, like up on my toes, it feels like I kind of got like a sock bunched up sort of feeling.
Yep.
So when I go back to it, it's all discomfort. None of it's, I would consider pain. When it gets cold, I guess it could be borderline a little painful,
Sure.
like almost like a frostbite type of feel.
Hmm.
But so that's it. And then I started my journey of like finding out why, hey, I'm going to be the one that fix it. I went to a functional, same path as just about everybody here, functional medicine doctor, got a bunch of expensive tests to tell me, oh, you might be gluten sensitive. So I did a year of gluten-free during the pandemic. Didn't help. Did 6 months of alcohol-free, anti-inflammatory, and I don't drink a lot, by the way, just a precursor there, but I gave up completely. And, none of it worked. I then, found myself with my wife, we're both professionals, educated people, at a chiropractor with the $4,000 foot bath and spinal, the rebuilder, I think, or what it's called.
Right.
Again, did that religiously. I mean, that's a lot of work. People think taking these pills or the protocol is a lot of work. Filling up a basin and sitting there for an hour at night with your feet in it, and then again in the morning is a lot more work.
And that didn't work either.
Yeah. Now through this time, it hasn't gotten super progressively worse, but still, in my mind, this is ultimately going to get worse. That's when I kind of stumbled upon, you guys, right? And 2 weeks ago started. Piece of cake now. I bought the little pouches for my vitamins. I have an AM pouch, a PM, a midday pouch. Grab it, put it in my backpack for work. Drink my oil at night.
Excellent.
Chug that down. John's like, it tastes like terrible. I'm like, well, I grew up in the 80s and went to college. I did a lot of shots of far worse stuff, tasting stuff than that. So, I mean, I'm not like, I'm not squeamish or anything. So I down that. And,
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to, everything now is kind of like, hey, is that this, like, am I having a good day? Like, I had a really bad day Monday, burning. And then that night I had something kind of weird feeling in my calves and feet, like almost like a shock, like a mild, like little bit of jolt.
Guess what that was?
What's that?
It was the North Carolina weather speaking to you.
Yeah, that's right. It's 71 day and 30 the next day.
I didn't get no sleep Monday night.
Yeah. But I'm going into this, and I told John, I said, how much it works, right? I don't have an 8 or 9 pain level where I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I got down to a 3. I mean, I maybe have a 2 or 3 discomfort level. I mean, maybe I'm just better at tolerating it than others. But everything that I researched, and I did a lot of research on all this. I mean, my neurologist told me, and I ain't even calling him my neurologist because he really hasn't done anything for me. I feel like my lawyer, my doctor, right?
Right.
Think he did something. The neurologist I saw talked about alpha lipoic acid, not what type, not any dose.
Just said the words.
Right.
And did he also say B complex?
No, he didn't say
that's
any
good.
of that. So I did take some alpha lipoic acid back in the summer, and I kind of didn't commit to it, I guess, at the time. So I researched all this stuff, and I'm like, all right, well, if I'm at this level, I mean, a really big win for me if I could keep this in check
and not progress.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it would be great if I get back from a 3 to a 0 or a 3 to a 1 of discomfort, and have my feet feel a little better on a more consistent basis. But taking that psychological burden of, hey, I'm 55. I got, worked hard my whole life to enjoy this part of my life.
Right. And
now I
you're
got this
getting,
thrown at me.
exactly.
So that's kind of the mindset I'm taking. But I do think, there's some things happening. I'm not going to
What kind of
declare
things?
victory or post about anything, but
No, but
it's become part of my routine after 2 weeks.
right.
It's zero effort doing it, and if I
Is
have to do it.
is there any, and it's very early in, but a lot of people, once they're in the routine and they don't miss a day, after a few weeks, they can feel certain of the most annoying annoyances backing off a little or easing up a little. Are you feeling that at all?
Well, like I said, yesterday or today, I'm sorry. Yesterday was the day I didn't do well. The night before I had like my feet were burning. Yesterday they were burning, and burning's not a real, like, that happens periodically for me. It's not an all time thing. And then today my feet felt much better. I mean, not normal.
Right. Well, for the most part, you can probably forget about normal going
Yeah.
forward, and look at the new normal. Unfortunately, a document I wrote is probably purged unless somebody reposted it. And it's all about seeking your new normal, because it is, again, up to you to make the decision to reframe your position going forward and say, okay, I know about the healing process, and it's slow and it's arduous, but with it, neurologically, comes these nerve awakenings. And a really bad day can easily be a sign of a nerve awakening. And then what happens with nerve awakenings is you may have 2, 3, 4 days of really bad discomfort, and then 5 days that are extremely light. So if today's your first day of light annoyance, you may be able to expect several more days following up of light annoyance before you hit that curve again to another awakening. Awakenings last like for the longest time. If you haven't taken a look at awakening stuff in the group, you should read up on it. Make it something that you understand and appreciate, because it can scare the shit out of you. You can think, oh my God, I've got all this progress and everything's great, and slam, out of nowhere, you feel worse than you ever did. Which reminds me of the idiot who got tossed out of the group who said, Bob Diamond, how many people have you killed with your protocol? But it is a reality that recovery has a cyclical path, and it's good days, bad days, good days, bad days. And it, you can predict sometimes based on triggers. Like if you're feeling really great and you decide to go for a hike, and you put on, where you're usually putting on 2,000-3,000 steps on an active day, and you put on 10,000, I can assure you the following day you're going to pay for it. So you gotta be careful that you don't fall into that, oh, I feel great, this is fantastic, and get right back into your old routine. It's going to slap you in the back of the head and say, hey, it's too much. There are people who are on the protocol. There are people who won't go on the protocol, who think the protocol is way too expensive and not for them, and they can't figure out why. And they are going pretty much in circles because they don't read. They don't, and again, it kind of sucks. I have no idea exactly what remains in the group in terms of support material, like what's in files. but just
Not much.
generally
I feel very
reading.
fortunate. Like I say, I immersed myself in it right before the holidays and during the holidays. Watched a ton of the videos. You know, I at my desk if I'm doing something, I'd have you on in the
Right.
background. So I in fact I told John, I said I feel worse for the people who are just discovering this because there's not much there right now.
Right.
Um,
And thankfully, seeing this coming, we pulled all of the videos and cataloged them. And so everything that was put up on Facebook is backed up. We just need a new vehicle to house it, probably in YouTube with a link on the website. Next week, we're turning on a social media component on the website so that we can do regular interactions between members. So, for example, if your diagnosis is diabetic neuropathy, you can interact with others in a chat room who have diabetic neuropathy. What you're going to find, sadly, in this group is that because of the number of attackers over the years, the credibility that I have in the group that I created is tarnished and scarred because of all of these former members and even sleepers that just hang out in there. That was an interesting noise. And you know, the hope is to rebuild back as much as possible, but it's going to take a lot of work from me to be able to pick a topic and just let loose on it from an output standpoint. Those lives, the videos, they contain a good bit of it, but they're weighty. A lot of times the Q&A, as you probably saw, was sluggish, but if it opened up with 15 or 20 minutes of what's on Bob's mind, that was interesting. And then opening it up to Q&A, sometimes it would just get kind of boring. But, you know, there again, the material is preserved as much as possible. And it pains me more than you know to know that my message has been cut by 2/3 by people who had their egos tainted. You know, it's like the other group operators who, like, why do you have a group if you don't present stuff that's not hocus pocus, stuff that actually truly can help people? Why do you do that? It doesn't make any sense. The answer to that question is ego. It's a shame. It's a shame. I would say don't get me started, but
Mhm.
I plan to finish. So by backing away from Facebook, let whoever wants to follow. I mean, notice we have 11,000 plus members in that group. The last live I did was September 1st. Look how many people are here tonight. And Rita and Geneva are group moderators. So it's yourself and somebody named Zoom user who could be Adam. If it's Adam, click on and say, hey, it's Adam. One member or two members have an interest after all this time in participating, or actually one member. What does that say for the mental state the emotional state of a person who joins the group. It used to be 4,000 to 5,000 people were engaged in what was going on in the group, which was a pretty high number out of, say, 10,000. And I haven't looked lately, but I think that number's under 3,000. So, and I know I have 10% of that number, roughly, who's fiddling around with the protocol. Back in the day when we had 1,000 people in the group, there were 300 people on the protocol. You know, it's really, I used to cost my insurance company $7,000 a month and feel like shit and have worse symptoms than I rode in with. And today I don't cost them anything a month. And I'm trying to get my head clear from all the drugs. But I've come to the realization that if I'd had known about the body's ability to heal itself and the basis being nutrition, before engaging with the neurologist and the gabapentin, who knows where I'd be right now. I know that the greatest difficulty I have now doesn't come from neuropathy, other than the brain fog that came from neuropathy. Who knows? You know, it's just, it's a sore subject. And I appreciate you letting me unload about it.
No, it's quite astounding that there's not more people that are jumping on it. I mean, I guess financially, you know,
$7 a day. $7 a day. When I got started, I turned off cable and I saved the cable bill and I started streaming, and I got used to that, and I stopped going out and doing whatever I could to amass. I think at the time it was about $240 a month or so for everything, little bits and pieces, to be able to try and, you know, just allow that to fit into my lifestyle. And then I also wouldn't have to pay the $2,400 at the beginning of the year to get to the point where my script copays were all zero and my doctor appointments were all zero. And literally in 4 weeks, I'd have to spit out what the protocol costs in a year. Just for, and having decent insurance, just for the out-of-pockets to be picked up. And, you know, if you're on pain management, you have to take a $3,500 urine test every month. And, you know, and then you've got the people who are not insured. And then the people who are insured, and insurance does not pay for vitamins. And so they look at that $5 bottle of gabapentin and they weigh that against the $220 collection of vitamins and stuff. And they're happier to pay the $5 copay for the gabapentin than actually repair themselves. You know, it is what it is, and it'll be what it is. And I'm gonna live with it being the condition of the group as long as, you know, it needs to be, and try and influence people to absorb what's left in there, go into the files, go over to Google Scholar and ask the questions that I did back in the day and learn what, you know, the facts are. It's it's kind of like a mission, because I knew what it was like for 8 solid years to be on 70 milligrams of OxyContin a day, 3,200 milligrams of gabapentin a day. And I've got a relatively high IQ, but I feel like a shit for brains. If it weren't for the fact, and I said this before, and you may have heard it in a Facebook Live that you got to see, if it weren't for the fact that I had a career in radio and television, and the ability to stand in one spot and keep my lips moving and say things that collectively could be tied in and whatever and make sense, and think on my feet at the spur of the moment. Doing these lives exercise the gray matter, which keep me from just sort of fading away mentally as a result of the drug habit that was delivered to me by the people who were there and paid well to protect me and to guide me in the right place. Sorry, they were derelict in their duty, all for the mighty dollar. So if people will research, if people will read, whether it's whatever's left in the group of things I've written, they even removed all the comments I made on people's questions. I think 60% maybe of the files remain, but I'm not sure. If people will sort through that, they can get the knowledge and understand why it's worth trying. No doubt it takes perseverance to stick to it, to swallow that oil. But it's got miraculous side effects. In our history, we've had multiple people have the precursor to multiple myeloma called MEGIS disappear. We've had people recovering from stage 3 and stage 4 renal failure. The side effects are better health. How people can't be bothered with that, because in order to do that, they'd have to spend $7 a day, is beyond me. I don't know. Appreciation for the things that we did in life, I suppose, is the key. Because if there isn't enough of that appreciation, then there's no reason to try and alter the direction of what will be your final destination. You know, we're going to all end up in the same place, but wouldn't it be nice to be able to play with grandkids before you get there? Wouldn't it be nice to remember half of the stuff you forgot? I don't know. It's crazy. Is there anything that makes you wonder about the process of the protocol from your experiences so far?
No, I mean, I think, and this is unfortunately, how society is. People don't want to go through the process. You're pretty clear, and maybe, I'm from New Jersey, New York, so you're kind of gruff attitude doesn't really affect me. That's most of the people I deal with are you,
right?
My family, my friends, everything. But I could see how it could be put off to some people. But sit there and hey, this is a bad problem. It sounds much worse for a lot of people than it does for me. And I don't understand why, because all I did, it's nothing, right? Everybody has a phone right now. I sat here, gee, I have 10 minutes. Let me watch a video, right? And I did that for months.
Mm,
And everything is laid out, in your email, your welcoming thing. It's like, here's the keys to our city. That's exactly what it was. Now, is it now? Not really. It's a little more challenging, but I said, all right, these are vitamins. You mentioned Google Scholar. Go do a little homework yourself on that, even though you've done it. And it's straightforward compared to everything else. And money, not an issue for me. I mean, would I like to not spend $200 on vitamins? Yeah, but
sure.
it's a lesser of a pain than worrying about neuropathy getting worse. And is it a grind? Is hemp seed oil enjoyable? No, but if you told me dog crap was part of the protocol and it was going to help me, I'd ingest that too.
Figure
right?
out a way. Get a small dog.
Everything's there, and it's not a big deal. I mean, I guess people, if they have other compromised, digestion and everything else, and it's tough taking the protocol, but I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. And it's kind of like you have nothing to lose. I mean, hey, I shelled out $4,000. My wife and I told you are, educated professional people, went to this chiropractor, and they're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. It's $4,000. And they wheel out this plastic bucket that looks like you put your cleaning supplies in that you buy at Walmart, and this electrical device that looks like a transistor radio from the 80s. That's $4,000. It's going to help you, 80% success rate. And I paid that out. Right. So in the scheme of things, this is, would I take that back and buy 2 years worth of protocol? Yeah. At this point, I just don't see the reluctance. I mean, I guess, again, financially, I'm in the financial services business. We're in a particular segment, the payday loan business.
Wow.
There's a study out, 58% of Americans don't have $2,000 of emergency funds. Right. So asking somebody $200 on vitamins that's in that position. I get it. Right.
Sure.
You can't do it. I mean, and their habits aren't cutting out stuff. If they're in that position, it's usually because they want the most expensive cable and nicest phones and everything else.
Right.
But money aside, I mean, it's not an issue for me. And I would imagine most that it's not an issue. Certainly it's $200 to get your life back a month is not a lot of money. But there's no confusion. I mean, it's crystal clear what you got to do. You listen to enough videos, you understand why it works, how it works. You've told me more than any doctor of like why it might have happened. Not one doctor said, oh, maybe you took an antibiotic, because I got perfect blood results. I'm not diabetic, nothing. Perfect blood test my entire life. I'm, decent weight. I was pretty active. I'm pretty active still.
The doctor that had
there's
the
no
courage,
reason.
the doctor that had the courage to point to an antibiotic could easily have been right on the money.
Yep.
Yep.
Have you taken Cipro?
No. The one thing I taught, 2018, I had a root canal, or not a root canal. I had my wisdom teeth out at 50 something years old.
Wow.
Right. Go figure. And I developed a very bad infection, but I went back and I actually saw that list of antibiotics I took during that time, and none of them were in that family. Even researched a bunch of them. However, when I moved from up north down here in the 90s, my allergies went off my seasonal allergies, and I had tons of sinus infections.
Sure.
And back then, nobody was scared of antibiotics. Yeah, give me an antibiotic before I even see it. Just call me one in. I just want it, and I'm sure that it's a good possibility I could have taken one or multiple antibiotics at that point in my life. I still don't understand the connection to that, like how you mentioned you've taken them at some point and it could kind of linger in your system, and then
they do for,
there's some trigger
for your
event.
life.
That's the part that doesn't make sense.
Fluoroquinolones, which have been around since the 60s, and it's all in your head, phantom disorders, as the medical world liked to refer to fibromyalgia. All of these sensitivities neurologically have lifelong consequences. I was exposed to a lot of Cipro in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And I think a lot of my background comes from that. But yet I have not developed ligament damage and some of the severe consequences of being exposed to that stuff. Why does it happen? It's because, you know, your DNA is getting reprogrammed by being subjected to that stuff, and it's getting damaged. And so next thing you know, you are like a disease. You are deteriorating from what used to be normal function of your body. And it's usually mechanical. And there's no way to just completely go backwards and eliminate all that damage that it's caused. We've got people who are doing it, treatments with all kinds of specialists, costs ridiculous money. And are they improving? Yeah. Are they ever going to be right? No. But these are the gifts from the pharmaceutical world. You know, these are the failures that they hide the memos about, and they continue to hit people with this stuff. Now, let's switch over to that concept and say, we are now, what, 74%, or maybe it's higher, vaccinated against COVID. You got vaccinated. I got vaccinated. I got COVID, January. Because 1 million people died from that in less than 2 years. To me, the risk and the reward of not getting such a horrible version of it that would require hospitalization, it's worth the risk than not getting vaccinated. You got it from your kid's basketball team. I took my parents, and I don't wear gloves. My mother is 80 something. My dad's 90, 91. I got it on a day that I took them to their doctor. So we went into a doctor's office that had 4 or 5 people in the whole place. And then after that, we dropped my dad at home, and I took my mom shopping to the grocery store, and masks everywhere. And that night I started feeling squirrely. And 2 days later, I'm feeling like shit. And so are my elderly parents who are not vaccinated. Well, this Omicron version went right through them. In 5 days, it was nothing but flu-like symptoms. I may have had it back to back in January and through a little part of February. And I had all kinds of symptoms. Did I need to go see the doctor to treat them? No, because I was vaccinated and it was worth the risk. But it goes to show you, there are some people who are highly compromised who don't get vaccinated, and they have the same easy run that I did, who was vaccinated. Which reminds me, I have to get boosted in another couple of weeks. This
Hey,
is
Bob?
Yeah.
But before you sign off, can I interrupt and ask a couple questions?
And okay, you're looking at the clock? Yep, you are looking
Yeah.
at the clock. So who's talking?
My name is Doug. I'm a new member from Ohio.
Hey, Doug. And you're under the heading of Zoom user.
Yep, very specific there. Zoom user, that's me.
Hit me with your questions.
So looking through the protocol and the stuff that's available on the webpage, one of the things I was concerned with is the hemp seed oil. And I know it's a very minor, very low concentration of THC.
It's a microscopic amount that will not show on any test.
So that is my question.
Let me finish. Years ago, and I do mean at the beginning when I started using it, years ago, the manufacturers, and there are several, the manufacturers all did what they called a pledge. And they created a website that I think they called Test Pledge. And the pledge was that they would refine their hemp seed oil, which hemp is a burlap bag. If you chew on a burlap bag, you don't test positive for marijuana. It is from the seed of the plant that makes the burlap bag. It's something like 0.002 something. And if you click on the FAQ, I think I get more specific.
You do.
And no one has ever tested positive. These guys, so that they can sell their product, ensure that you won't test positive. One of my buddies is an FBI guy, and he gets regular random tests, and he does it, and he's never tested positive. Another buddy works for a cruise line as an entertainer, and he gets regular tests, and nothing has been shown there. So in answer to your question, it's not going to get picked up.
So is there, let's say, for example, your FBI friend, he's kind of in the same boat I am, so I'm subject to random urinalysis.
Right.
And the levels they test for are a little bit more stringent than the traditional civilian population. But as far as you know, nobody's tested positive from the hemp seed oil.
Not since 2015, while I've had my fingers on the pulse of numbers who have been using it. Yeah, nobody. Everybody wondered, everybody worried. I don't know if the website is still active, but testpledge.org, see where it takes you in a Google or in a web search. And you can also go directly to the Manitoba Harvest website and do a search in that group, and you can read some blurbs about it.
Yeah, I've already contacted that manufacturer and asked them the same question, and they pretty much gave me the same response with some source articles as well.
And you're still seeking information. You're waiting to find someone who tested positive so that you can say, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No, it's not that at all. It's if I do test positive, it's very detrimental to my career.
No doubt. No doubt.
So before I make the step, I need to make 100% sure in my mind that I'm going to be comfortable with this.
There are a lot of people, for a number of reasons, who don't do the hemp seed oil. The yucky factor, it's marijuana factor, you just sell that to make more money factor.
And there is the gut issues.
And there are the gut issues. The people who have leaky gut and have not been able to get around that. Huh?
Gallbladder.
And people who don't have gallbladders. The point is that what makes the HSO magical, and I suppose looking in the files under why hemp seed oil would give you the specific, and that document is still there, will give you the specific breakdown. Hemp seed oil, yeah.
So I was going to say, is flaxseed oil a suitable substitute?
It's not a suitable substitute. What sets flaxseed oil, the reason flaxseed oil is now a part of the protocol is twofold. One is I don't like what I've been reading about fish oils. The cardiological implications and potential of damage. Fish oil, unless you're buying really expensive krill oil, you shouldn't have to pay $55 for a bottle of fish oil when the omega breakdown in flaxseed oil, same animal, is greater, is better. The numbers are better. The reason why I popped at this last version of the protocol, popped flax in and kicked fish out, is because flax is the closest to hemp seed oil in its breakdown, but it fails the comparison test in one place, and that is in the essential fatty acids, the EFAs. There is nothing like hemp seed oil on the earth. It's unique. And it was the number 2 item when I first started this. It is still the number 2 item. And it is the favorite food of the cell's mitochondria. And I think that everybody who's not doing that, hemp seed oil, is doing the challenge a disservice. Imagine you're preparing to fuel your engine and you've got everything in line, and then you remove the fuel. To be kind, I think that's effed up. So I have done the switch with the flax, and I have made available hemp caps so that they can get the hemp seed oil out of the capsule and they don't have to let it pass their lips. You know, it's the essential fatty acids that make the hemp seed oil unique, and flax doesn't come close to it. But the omega-6 and the omega-3 indices, they make it worth subbing out fish for the omegas.